Picture this. You're lying under a blanket of stars in the middle of nowhere, using a rock as your pillow. You're alone, afraid, and running from the biggest mistake of your life. Then suddenly you see something that changes everything. A ladder stretching from earth to heaven, with angels climbing up and down. This isn't science fiction. This is the story of Jacob, a man whose name literally means the deceiver. And yet he became the father of an entire nation. It's a story about sibling rivalry that went way too far, about lies that spiraled out of control, and about how sometimes our worst moments can lead to our greatest transformations. Our story begins before Jacob was even born. His parents, Isaac and Rebekah, had been trying to have children for 20 years. When Rebekah finally became pregnant, something strange happened. She could feel two babies fighting inside her womb. She was so concerned that she went to ask God what was happening. God gave her a prophecy that would echo through generations. Two nations are in your womb. The older will serve the younger. When the twins were born, the first baby came out red and hairy, so they named him Esau. But here's the kicker. The second baby was born holding onto his brother's heel, as if trying to pull him back. They named him Jacob, which means heel grabber or supplanter. From day one, these brothers were complete opposites. Esau grew up to be a skilled hunter, an outdoorsman who loved adventure. He was his father Isaac's favorite, probably because Isaac loved the wild game Esau would bring home. Jacob, on the other hand, was quieter, more of a homebody who preferred tending to the family's flocks. He was his mother Rebekah's favorite. This favoritism would prove to be toxic for the entire family. One day Esau came home from hunting, exhausted and starving. Jacob was cooking a pot of lentil stew, and the smell was incredible. Esau begged his brother for some food. Jacob saw an opportunity. "I'll give you the stew," he said, "but you have to sell me your birthright first." Now the birthright was a big deal. As the firstborn, Esau was entitled to inherit twice as much as his younger brother and become the head of the family when their father died. But Esau was so hungry and impulsive that he said, "What good is a birthright if I'm dead from hunger? Fine, it's yours." Just like that, for a bowl of soup, Esau traded away his future. The Bible says he despised his birthright. He treated something priceless as if it were worthless. But Jacob wasn't done. He had the birthright, but he still wanted the blessing. The Great Deception. Years passed, and Isaac grew old and nearly blind. Knowing his time was running short, he called Esau and said, "Son, go hunt some wild game, prepare my favorite meal, and I'll give you my final blessing." This blessing wasn't just a nice gesture. It was believed to carry real power and authority. It would determine who would lead the family and inherit God's promises. Rebekah overheard this conversation and she panicked. She remembered God's prophecy that the older would serve the younger. She was determined to make sure Jacob got that blessing, even if it meant deceiving her husband. So Rebekah hatched a plan. She told Jacob, "I'll prepare your father's favorite meal using goat meat. You'll take it to him and pretend to be Esau." Jacob was nervous. "Mom, this will never work. Esau is hairy and I'm smooth-skinned. If Dad touches me, he'll know I'm lying, and instead of a blessing, I'll get a curse." But Rebekah was determined. She dressed Jacob in Esau's clothes, covered his hands and neck with goatskins to make him feel hairy, and sent him to his father with the meal. The deception was almost comical. Isaac was suspicious from the start. "You got back awfully quickly," he said, "and you sound like Jacob, not Esau." But Jacob doubled down on the lie. "I am Esau, your firstborn. God help me find the game quickly." Isaac was still uncertain, so he asked Jacob to come closer. He felt the goat skins on Jacob's hands and smelled Esau's clothes. Despite his doubts, Isaac gave Jacob the blessing meant for Esau, a blessing of prosperity, authority, and God's favor. The timing couldn't have been worse. Just after Jacob left, Esau returned from hunting with his father's favorite meal. When Isaac realized what had happened, he trembled violently. Esau was devastated and begged for a blessing too, but Isaac had already given the main blessing away. Esau wept bitterly and said, "No wonder his name is Jacob. He's deceived me twice. First he took my birthright, now he's stolen my blessing." In that moment, something died in Esau's heart. He decided he would kill Jacob as soon as their father died. When Rebekah learned that Esau was planning to kill Jacob, she knew she had to act fast. She convinced Isaac to send Jacob away to find a wife among her relatives, but the real reason was to save Jacob's life. So Jacob left everything behind, his family, his home, his security, and began the long journey to his uncle Laban's house in a place called Haran. He was alone, afraid, and probably wondering if his deception had been worth it. On his first night as a fugitive, Jacob stopped in a place called Bethel. He found a stone to use as a pillow and lay down to sleep under the stars. That's when he had the dream that would change everything. In his dream, Jacob saw a ladder stretching from earth to heaven, with angels going up and down on it. And at the top of the ladder stood God himself. God spoke to Jacob, "I am the Lord, the God of your grandfather Abraham and your father Isaac. I will give you and your descendants the land you're lying on. Your descendants will be like the dust of the earth, and through you, all families on earth will be blessed. I am with you and will watch over you wherever you go." Jacob woke up in awe. "Surely the Lord is in this place, and I didn't realize it," he said. "This is the house of God, the gate of heaven." He took the stone he'd used as a pillow, set it up as a marker, and poured oil on it. Then he made a vow. "If God will be with me and protect me on this journey, and if he brings me safely back to my father's house, then the Lord will be my God. This stone will be God's house, and I will give back to God 1/10 of everything he gives me." This was Jacob's first real encounter with God, and it happened when he was at his lowest point. Sometimes that's when we're most open to hearing from the divine. Jacob continued his journey and eventually arrived at his uncle Laban's house. There he met Rachel, Laban's younger daughter, and it was love at first sight. The Bible says Jacob loved Rachel so much that he offered to work for Laban for 7 years to earn the right to marry her. Those 7 years seemed like only a few days because of Jacob's love for Rachel. Finally, the wedding day arrived, but Laban had a trick up his sleeve. In those days, brides were heavily veiled during the ceremony. When morning came and Jacob saw his new wife clearly, he got the shock of his life. It wasn't Rachel, it was her older sister Leah. Jacob was furious. "What have you done to me? Didn't I work for Rachel? Why have you deceived me?" Laban's response was classic. "It's not our custom to give the younger daughter in marriage before the older one." The deceiver had been deceived. Jacob was getting a taste of his own medicine, but Jacob's love for Rachel was too strong to give up. Laban offered him a deal. "Work for me another 7 years and you can marry Rachel too." So Jacob worked 14 years total for the woman he loved. During this time, he had children with both sisters and later with their servants as well. This polygamous arrangement created constant tension and rivalry in the household. Leah, who felt unloved, kept having children, hoping to win Jacob's affection. Rachel, who was loved but initially couldn't have children, became jealous of her sister. It was a dysfunctional family situation that would have lasting consequences. Jacob eventually had 12 sons from his wives and their servants. These 12 sons would become the heads of the 12 tribes of Israel. After 20 years with Laban, Jacob had become wealthy, but the relationship with his uncle had soured. Laban had changed Jacob's wages 10 times and was clearly becoming jealous of Jacob's success. Jacob knew it was time to leave. So one day, while Laban was away, Jacob packed up his entire household, his wives, children, servants, and flocks, and headed back toward his homeland. This was no small operation. By now, Jacob had a caravan of hundreds of people and thousands of animals. But going home meant facing Esau, and Jacob had no idea if his brother still wanted to kill him. As they approached the border, Jacob sent messengers ahead to Esau with a humble message. "I'm returning with great wealth, and I hope to find favor in your sight." The messengers returned with terrifying news. "Esau is coming to meet you with 400 men." Jacob was terrified. He thought Esau was coming to wipe out his entire family. So he did 2 things. He prayed desperately for God's protection, and he sent an enormous gift ahead to Esau: hundreds of goats, sheep, camels, cattle, and donkeys. The night before the meeting, Jacob sent his family across a river and stayed behind alone. That's when something incredible happened. A mysterious man appeared and began wrestling with Jacob. They fought all night long, and neither could defeat the other. As dawn approached, the man said, "Let me go, for it is daybreak." But Jacob replied, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." "What is your name?" the man asked. "Jacob," he replied. "Your name will no longer be Jacob," the man said. "From now on you will be called Israel, because you have struggled with God and with men and have overcome." Jacob realized he had been wrestling with God himself. He named the place Peniel, which means face of God, saying, "I saw God face to face, and yet my life was spared." This wrestling match was symbolic of Jacob's entire life, always struggling, always striving, always fighting for something. But now he had a new name and a new identity. He was no longer Jacob the deceiver, but Israel, meaning he who wrestles with God. The next morning, Jacob saw Esau approaching with his 400 men. Expecting the worst, Jacob bowed down 7 times as he approached his brother. But instead of violence, something beautiful happened. Esau ran to meet Jacob, embraced him, and they both wept. 20 years of anger and hatred melted away in that moment. Esau had forgiven his brother. "What do you mean by all this company I met?" Esau asked, referring to the gifts Jacob had sent. "To find favor in your sight, my lord," Jacob replied. But Esau said, "I have enough, my brother. Keep what you have." The reunion was complete. The brothers were reconciled. Jacob's story teaches us that our worst mistakes don't have to define us. Yes, Jacob was a deceiver, a schemer, someone who hurt people to get what he wanted. But he was also someone who could change, who could grow, who could become the man God intended him to be. His 12 sons became the 12 tribes of Israel, and through his lineage came kings, prophets, and according to Christian belief, Jesus himself. The deceiver became the father of a nation. Sometimes our greatest struggles, whether with others or with God, lead to our greatest breakthroughs. Sometimes we have to wrestle through the night to receive our blessing at dawn. Jacob's story reminds us that redemption is possible, that broken relationships can be healed, and that even the most flawed people can be part of God's great plan. So here is what we learn from Jacob's story: transformation through struggle. Jacob's wrestling with the angel shows that spiritual growth often comes through confronting our deepest challenges. With his name changed to Israel, wrestles with God, demonstrating that struggling with the divine can lead to blessing and new identity. Divine grace over merit. Despite being flawed and deceptive, Jacob was chosen by God and received divine promises, showing that spiritual favor flows from grace rather than human perfection. Persistence in seeking. Jacob's determination to receive a blessing even while wounded teaches the importance of persevering in spiritual pursuit, not giving up when the path becomes difficult. Like and subscribe to this channel to keep enjoying and learning from these beautiful Bible stories.